Good morning, sir.
Good morning, miss. Good morning. Is my voice audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good morning once again, everyone. I think teachers are coming in. Maybe before they come in, a few housekeeping guidelines. If you want to ask or interrupt me in the presentation, you can do so by raising your hand, and you can keep your audio mute for the rest of the presentation. In case if you require, when you raise your hand, you can unmute it. If you feel that your video is not proper, or if you have any bandwidth problem, you can disable when we start. Not a problem. Initially, let it be on so that everyone knows that you're there for that purpose. The main important reason for conducting today is because actually I planned to conduct on yesterday or day before yesterday, but we had outings for co-curricular as well as academic staff yesterday. And if I miss today, then I will not be able to. I can conduct next week, but there are few important timelines as well as process which I need to share. That is why I was discussing with Rajiv Nair previously, and with the help of Divya, we made some timelines. Of course, I need to share a complete timeline to the IB in the portal, but once when I explain what all I require for that, you'll be able to add in your respective focus groups. Now, the first important thing is we had seen last uh, in the last presentation that preliminary review is an important one because that comes first. We need to upload all the documents by October 10th, so that by 15th of October we can close preliminary review process, so that IB will be able to view those documents and suggest any preliminary matters to be addressed. If it is there, they will definitely address that. Now, there are other two stages which we'll be seeing. Let me share the screen so that it'll be easy for you to understand what is there. You're able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, the first important thing is there are three main steps involved in the program evaluation. The first one, of course, is the preliminary review, followed by two important steps, which are actually the two stages of self study. The first one is self study, which we are going to do regarding a program development plan. One aspect of the program development we are choosing, and we are going to deep dive into that program development. And we narrow it down to approaches to learning in our previous poll. So we are going to continue that for across the school and across the community. So that is the second one. The third one is self study, that is nothing but self assessment. We need to complete the complete self study process, which will help us to complete that process by December. So, the self study program, as well as the program development plan, both need to be completed simultaneously. So we kept the deadline. You'll be knowing that mostly it is in November, so that we get some time to review those documents and then finally publish it. The next important one, which I wanted your inputs in case if anyone knows, we have three things which we have to do it, of course: action plan, strategic plan, and program development plan. Anyone wants to share what is meant by action plan in our DP evaluation? Because we need to know the difference between all these three. So just I wanted to get your thoughts. If anyone wants to share what is action plan in this DP evaluation. Yeah, it's not
Sir,
a.
Sajini Miss has raised her hand.
Yes, Sajnimas, you can go ahead.
I think action plan is, correct me if I'm wrong, sir, but action plan is the steps that we have to take in the 5 years in order to reach a better standard or better level. So we have action plan of 2017, which we should have done in the past 5 years. And the action plan we will do now is probably for the next 5 years.
Perfect,
Not sure,
Sajnimas.
sir.
Continue. Correct, Sajnimas. It's absolutely correct. We would have created an action plan for our previous review. We need to check whether we fulfill that in this 5 year. That is the first requirement. Now, what they're telling us, action plan, because we are in the new process of in other words, we are in the new process of evaluation, and we are using the new document also. Because of that, it it states that we need to be uh, putting in place the action plan only when we feel that any practices, if they are not in place. So that means they are slightly flexible this time. They're telling that in case if any policy or any document or any practices or specific requirements for a program, if it is not in place, then you can include that in a action plan, and usually that will be fulfilled after we complete our evaluation study this time. So that is the meaning of action plan there. And the next one, when you see the other one is especially second one which I showed is strategic plan. Any idea regarding the strategic plan? I think teachers are still coming in, so I'm just admitting one by one. Any idea regarding the strategic plan?
Rita Miss has raised her hand, sir.
Yes, Miss Rita, Miss, you can go ahead.
Strategic plan is about our long-term plans for the next 5 years, what we want to do in the various areas of the academics and offering of the IB.
Perfect, Rita Miss. It's perfect. Your answer is absolutely correct. Next 5 years, what we are planning to do in our DP program. In other words, after 5 years, if you see, now we are in 2021. So in 24 or in 25, what actually we want our program to look like. So that plan we need to create. It is up to the school to decide how our program should develop, what should be the pace in which we are going to develop. So it is up to us completely, but they wanted us to make a strategic plan so that in next 5 years we will be in the developmental mode. That is the purpose of this strategic plan. So it is different from the action plan. Action plan is based on the practices. If it is not in place, we need to create an action plan. Strategic plan is completely left to us in as a school, in school context, what we need to do. So we need to plan for the next 5 years, which can be completely under our control. So the IB is not suggesting that what we need to do or what we not supposed to do. The third one is program development plan. Anyone want to share thoughts on that program development plan? Anyone? Doesn't matter. Here we are not checking for right or wrong answers. The main purpose of that is to make everyone have a same understanding. That is the purpose of. So these two now, everyone will know that what is an action plan and what is a strategic plan. So Pranav Singh has raised her hand. Pranav, go ahead. Pranav, you can go ahead.
So I'm just assuming that personal development program is like how we are professionally developing those skills or practices that is inclined with IB, and how we are being provided those skills is about PDP.
Yes. To a certain extent, it's true, Pranav. Only one thing is they changed the program. That is, the program evaluation new document states that we need to select one aspect of a program development. That is why we have chosen approaches to learning. So now that approaches to learning become our main important aspect, and that we are going to develop completely. So in other words, we are going to develop that completely for the whole school. So it doesn't matter whether we are following a DP or not. It is for the whole school. We are going to check whether where we are at this stage and how we are going to move forward. For that only, we have a template shared by the IB which they are suggesting we can use it. In case if we want to modify, we can modify. That is one thing. The next important thing there they're telling us, when we are doing the program development plan, especially for approaches to learning, we need to form a focused group for that also. That is what they are expecting, and we have already made in a focus group last time I shared in that presentation. Now I'll be touching on that, what actually is the process. So these are the three important plan which we require to make separately as per the DP is concerned for this evaluation. And this is a new aspect. This actually came into existence only from September 2020. Fortunately or unfortunately, we are in the revaluation process in 2022, and because of that we have to choose this. So we cannot go back and choose the previous 2014 standards and practices. So that is why we have to do, and it's one way good, because they wanted us to take one aspect and develop on that, and once when we were successful in that, we know how to develop each and every aspect of the diploma program. That is the purpose of that. Thank you, Pranav, Rita Miss, and Sajini Miss. I'm again sharing my screen. I think it went off.
Sir, Priya Miss has raised hand.
Priya Miss, you want to share something?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Angeline Miss. Sir, in the program development plan, the impacts have to be discussed of all the different IB practices, and if there is also a section which is called the reflection stage.
Yes.
And we have to include things such as what evidence we are going to put forward, and what data we are collecting, and how we're going to collect the data.
Definitely. Thank you, Miss. Thank you, Priyamada, for that inputs. Now we have the next one, that is in this new evaluation document, or in the new 5-year evaluation plan based on the September 2020 framework, we are actually submitting many documents which are somehow related to the previous one. But there are two new documents which they included which are not there for the previous 5-year plans. Anyone able to locate those two documents? You want to share what are those two documents which are new to us, which we are going to submit?
Suresh,
Rajiv,
one is,
yes, Rajiv,
parent-student complaint procedure.
Perfect, Rajiv. Good. Another one?
I don't know, sir. I know only one.
No problem. Another one is not something which we are going to do as a document. It is something we have to take responsibility in participating in the whole self-study process and understanding the requirements. That is called something like statement of acceptance, which was not there before. Now they are expecting us to sign on the behalf of all the teachers. Usually the head of the school signs, but when the head of the school signs, it indicates that all of us, all the stakeholders have understood what actually is this 5-year evaluation, and we have participated in this discussion, and we also read through the documents. That's the meaning of that. So that means everyone has to read those documents. So the two important documents which are new to this 5-year evaluation is, one is the statement of acceptance, which is just a template which is provided by the IB, which we need to sign, and then once when it is signed, already the template is added or shared in our Google Drive. The second one is the complaint procedures for parents and teachers. We need to make a document for that. What all complaints students can raise, what all appeals students can raise. Similarly, what all things parents can participate in their appeal, and what is the procedure which we are following. A simple example is something like EUR, the inquiry upon results. What are the steps which we follow in order for the students to apply for the EUR? Of course, we send as a mail and get the information from them, but they're telling it that is not enough. We need a document for that also. So that is what we are going to create. Next one is we have some templates which we need to follow in this 5-year evaluation. Of course, some templates can be modified as per our requirements, but there are basic templates shared by IB, and some of them we need to follow. Any idea what all the templates which we need to use it for submitting different documents for this 5-year plan? I've shared this also in one of our in our WhatsApp group also.
Sir, Priyamis has raised.
Yes, Priyamis, go ahead.
Sir, preliminary review template.
Perfect. Preliminary review template. Actually, preliminary review template. Usually, there we are not filling anything, but actually we need to follow those guidelines given in the template, especially when collecting the documents. Of course. Next, Priyamis. You want to add, or anyone wanted to add? One is preliminary review document or a template. Second one is implementation budget, or in other words, budget. So when we are creating a budget for the next 5 years for the DP program, we need to use the template which is shared by the IB. I think Anil Pillai is in that group. So that template we have to use it. The third template which we have to use will be for the self-study questionnaire. Definitely self-study questionnaire, whatever IB provided, that we have to use it. I have already created the name list and everything, so it will be shared after this session. So that is one self-study questionnaire. The next one is we have a template for program development plan also. The program development plan also, they have given a template, but they're recommending that to be used because since it is in the initial stage, or we are in the first stage, if we want to modify it, we can do so. We can add some more criteria or components, whatever we feel. But the structure of that template, the IB is expecting us to use. So one is a program development template. Second one is a preliminary review template. The third one is a budget one, which we need to use that one. The fourth one is self-study questionnaire. And for statement of acceptance also, it is a template document. We need to fill it and get it, and we need to sign. The last one is especially the school and program profile. The school and program profile also, they have given a template, so that template we have to use it. So those who are in those committees or focused groups, kindly make a note that these are the templates which we need to use it. So it's not necessary we need to create anything new. I can see RC, that is Ritam, is raising it, and Risam is anything.
Sir, it also shows the action plan template.
Yeah, action plan template is also there, but there I'm putting as optional because in case if we don't fulfill the practices, we need to fill that. But we are assuming that we should be able to fulfill all the practices. We'll see. Otherwise, we need to create an action plan for anything which we are missing it out. Thank you, Rita. That also is there is a template for action plan. Now, this preliminary review documentation, as I told you, we need to complete it by October 10th. And there are different timelines, deadlines given for different collection of documents. But one thing we need to see there is when we are collecting documents, our purpose is not only for collecting documents, we need to review the document and see whether it has to be updated based on the standards and practices given in the new IB 5-year evaluation, that is the September 2020 document. So once when we prepare and submit the documentation, it goes into three parts. Update is needed as and when wherever we notice, and we are submitting by the deadline. That is the first step. The second step is IB will review this document and they will immediately send us the completed report within 2 weeks of our submission. So if we send on October 10th, we will be able to get it by end of October, whether any documents are pending or anything to be updated or modified. And once when that is done, the school will receive, if there are any matters to be addressed or any revisions to be made. If there is no revision to be made or anything, then they will, if there is anything which is to be included in the action plan, that time also they may expect us to include. In case if we feel that, if they feel that it cannot be accomplished in the remaining time available, they may tell us to add it in the action plan. So these are the stages which they tell. And the main purpose of completing this program, the preliminary review is they are planning to focus more on program development plan when they have a 2-day visit. That means 40 to 50% of the time they will use it to investigate, evaluate, collaborate, discuss whatever possible with all the stakeholders to find out where we have reached in that program development. So that is their main focus. So they don't want to spend time in going through the documents during that time. So documents process will be over once when we submit. That is the purpose of that. Now, this program development plan, as I told you, it has different stages. As Priyamvada shared, now we need to do the reflection process also. So there are 4 stages in which we need to do it. We want to focus on approaches to learning, but the 4 stages in which it has to go through will be, we need to first evidence how we are going to evidence this program development plan, especially for approaches to learning. That is where we are at present. We need to first evidence it, and then we need to analyze that, reflect on what we are doing, and at the same time we will be getting the feedback from the IB. So these are the 4 stages, and we'll be using the template called as Appendix 2 PDP template, which is already there as a part of our program standards and practices. So in that document it is there. And initially we are planning to have a weekly collaborative planning sessions every Wednesday, 4:20 to 5:05. Of course, I feel that we should be able to make it because the time is limited for us, especially for program development plan. And we also made a focused group for that with Rajiv Nair as a PDP leader for this. And we have so many teachers in that because we need to have representatives from all the subject groups for this, as well as we need to rope in students and maybe some representatives from parents. Maybe we have to put some representatives from the admin section also, because they wanted to see that this approaches to learning, how it happens, not only in the classroom, in all the 4 areas, especially when you see the program framework, the standards and practices framework. It has a purpose, it has learning, it has environment, and it also has culture. So all the 4 areas we need to see that they are interconnected. At the same time we need to do this part. And when we are doing this we have to submit as a both these documents should be submitted by December, but we kept it as November 10th because once when we get a draft of that, and then we may have some review meetings to see that any modifications to be done, and then we can complete it. But for doing this process, we need to follow an inquiry route, or in other words, inquiry-based approach only. IB feels that it is a best approach for whatever evidencing which we are going to do. Whether it is basically our programs, whether it is PYP or MYP or DP, the approach is inquiry-based learning. The same way they expect the teachers also to follow the inquiry route when we do the evaluation process also, and they expect us to do as a professional inquiry. This is actually for the student inquiry purpose, we usually use different routes. Like sometimes it may be a structured inquiry, or it can be a controlled inquiry, or it may be a guided inquiry or a free inquiry. Because for students, we take different stages based on the content, the topic, and the concepts which we are going to do. This is actually taken from Trevor Mackenzie's book. And we also heard about this when we had the PYP workshop also recently. But for as teachers, they expecting us to follow a professional inquiry route. Professional inquiry, in the sense, actually, according to IB, is what they're trying to inculcate in us is the 3 different types of inquiry. Of course, there are different ways of inquiry process which we can follow, but IB recommends that we should be able to touch on these three, especially appreciative inquiry, evaluative inquiry, and collaborative inquiry. Here, the appreciative inquiry means, according to IB, is we may have many practices in place at present. In other words, we are appreciating that. That means we are starting with an inquiry process where we are first finding out what all practices are already in place, and then we are checking whether how to extend them. So it is almost like a positive way of approach. That is why they call this as an appreciative inquiry. Then they are telling us to move into a place where you wanted to move in an evaluation mode. That means you are looking for finding out whether those practices are really happening, it is visible, whether it is possible to improve, whether best practices are followed, whether among the teachers or across the section. So many kinds of questions we raise, and then we evaluate, and then finally come to a consensus whether this practice is in any of the descriptor levels which they are telling. Usually they are telling us to apply those three levels, of course, developing, developed, and highly developed. But we have to find out first from the program standards and practices what all practices are related to approaches to learning, and then we have to separate them, and each one we have to evaluate and find out using these inquiry process. There are a lot of literature on these three, but I'm just touching this because if we use some tools and protocols, we may get more uh, more stakeholders perspectives. That's the idea behind this. The third one is the collaborative inquiry, which of course it's to look into contribution from all the stakeholders, because here IB feels that it is not based on one particular cohort group is taking an initiative, and then when they visit, they want to see that it is prevalent, it is penetrated through the school culture, it is penetrate, it is visible in the throughout the school. So that is what their expectation. So in that case, we need to think the process in which we are going to collect evidence should be always the inquiry route. For that, I'm just touching on this. There may be some more ideas, of course, once when we meet as a focused groups. I think we should be able to do that. The next one is the self-assessment part, which is the self-study process. For that, we have a self-study questionnaire. Every one of us should read that self-study questionnaire, because all those practices given in that self-study questionnaire will help us to use that as a lens to check whether we are able to implement, whether it is visible in our school culture, purpose, environment, and wherever they are telling. Now, in purpose, we have, I just noted down the main practices. I have not included the sub practices or the specific requirements for a DP program. The main practices, when we consider in purpose, we have three. In environment, we have 13. In culture, we have 6. And majority we have in learning, that is 19. Now, for each of these headings, each of these aspects, so we need a focused group, and these focus groups need to investigate those practices, and we need to see whether it is in place through the inquiry process, whatever process we are planning to use. But what is the new guidelines, or the new framework is making us aware is, whatever we do, whether it is purpose or culture or environment, they are concentrating keeping that learning at the center. So that is why they put that triangle learning in the center. So all these four parts, even though it is given as separate headings, they are all interconnected, and then one connects the other, one helps the other. In other words, it should be as a whole we should be able to see. It doesn't mean that in one part it is happening, in another part it is not happening. So all the parts of this triangle should be connected, and we need to see the bigger picture. Of course, the school context is also taken into consideration, and IB philosophy is taken into consideration. That is why they put it at the outer circle, the circumference part of it. So those two lenses also we are using. Now, when we come to the self-assessment part, the first part, purpose, is mainly related to the leadership part. Actually, the governance and leadership both comes there, a majority part of it, and only three practices are there. Of course, I put as our principal as a leader there. Miss will be guiding us, but all are there in that part, especially when you see.
Sir, are you sharing the screen?
Yeah, I think suddenly something came. 1 minute, I'll just yeah, it's fine. It's visible.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. Okay.
No, sir.
It was visible so long.
Yes,
Yes, before this it was
Now
visible.
your screen is
Yes.
visible.
Okay. Okay. I'm just.
Your screen is visible.
Okay. Okay. I'll just. So it has come out. I think that's the reason. Yeah. I'll just share it again. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Fine. Now we need 4 focus groups. So we have the first one, purpose. We have the environment one. We have added teachers as representatives from the whole school, but we need to add on maybe 1 or 2 representatives from administration. We need to add on from maybe support systems. Maybe we need to add students wherever possible. We need to add parents wherever possible. We need to add even the members of the governing body wherever possible. So all these we will be adding as and when we are progressing, because all stakeholders should be participating in this self-assessment process. At the same time, in case if we require any survey to be conducted or to make them aware of certain processes, as a focus group, we will be doing that. So environment, we made Gargi Gupta as a leader for that, and for culture, we made Rekha Jacqueline as a leader, and for learning, of course. I'm leading it, but it's more or less like all stakeholders who are there as members, contribution matters a lot. So leading is just to give us some kind of a framework. That is the reason I'm putting like that. So it doesn't mean that we will, and we need to have focus groups or meetings and timelines created once when we go into that deeply. Maybe 1 or 2 meetings will help us to understand what type of meetings, focus group meetings we require, how we need to proceed, what type of protocols we can use, what type of tools we can use it in order to understand whether we have evidencing those standards and practices which are happening in school. So these are some of the things which we will be sharing. Okay. And this self-assessment questionnaire also will be shared as a Google Doc, so that all groups can edit. In only thing, you need to make 1 or 2 people as main editors, so that they are using the document to edit. Otherwise, we will not have what is that a document which we feel that it is conformity to uniformity. That's the reason. So once when you have a meeting, we can decide who will be 1 or 2 people who will be able to edit this document, and that I will be sharing it. I already created the Google Docs there. Only thing I have to share with the people who will be editing that. Of course, the template is already available there, that you can check it from the IB evaluation document. Now, another important thing which I wanted to stress is, which I forgot to stress in the previous meeting, is even Rita Miss and I had a conversation also regarding this. What is the main difference between the previous program standards and practices and this one, the recent one, which is released in 2020 September? Now, a majority, or in other words, we can say, there are certain practices which cannot be changed. There are, maybe, of course, we can say they have just tweaked in to include the school context. Maybe they have included, they given more preference for the school in certain areas. But the major approach in which they're going to take it, the difference when we see, the 3 differences are there in the relationship, in the approach and the emphasis. That is how they are going to have a relationship between the IB as well as IB World Schools, in their approach as well as in their emphasis. First, I will touch upon the relationship. Relationship means what they have actually changed is, previously their mode was complaints. In the previous program standards and practices, their expectation was complaints. That means the practices should be in place. So that was their major no impact or major way in which the guidelines was given. Now they are going into a development mode. That means they're giving this to the school. They're expecting us to develop. So the relationship is in the development mode, not in the complaints mode. So that is a change in the relationship pattern when you see this new framework. The second one is the approach here. Usually they consider both the IB as well as the IB World Schools as a learning organization. They consider as a learning organization. In other words, they consider as a living ecosystem, both the IB as well as all the IB World Schools. So learning organization, when we consider, actually, this concept came into IB because of the research happened in MIT, especially in the year 1990, by a professor named Peter M. Senge. He was the main person who was responsible or who used this word learning organization. Of course, if you get time, you can read a book called as Fifth Discipline. That is a book written by Peter Senge. It's available in Amazon. I think we can. I think we would have got it. I think during the CIS NIAS accreditation process. This book was given by them as one of the resources for us to buy. I think we would have bought as a hard copy. Just check the new library. You'll be able to get hold of that. It's called as Fifth Discipline. And what actually learning organization culture or learning organization attributes give us an awareness is how nimble we are to meet the change, how quick are we in making the change and adaptation. Why they are telling that is after this pandemic or before this pandemic itself, they have written this, but they expect that this is going to be a norm in today's world. That is, the rate at which organizations learn may become the only sustainable source of competitive advantage, they're telling. That means organizations will exist in future, or in other words, we can say organizations which are continuously learning will exist in future. Other organizations will perish. That is the meaning of this. That means if we are not continuously learning, it becomes difficult for us to survive in this coming years as an IB World School. That is what they're trying to say. So that means all of us, it means that not a few representatives here and there are learning. Everyone should be a lifelong learner. Everyone should be participating in this learning process. In other words, learning is a norm. We cannot exclude that. So that is what they're telling. But how the school is supporting in that, how the culture is there in this aspect, so that we need to evaluate and find out what all tools are there for us to take this further. What is the guiding philosophy for us? How the policies are helping us in this part? How the principles are created here in our school? How the learning infrastructure itself is created? So these are some of the things which they are telling us to look into, so that when we deep dive into the practices, we should also keep this as their approach of IB. And even they are telling that the learning environment should be supportive. Especially they're telling that there should be a psychological safety. They're using a word called as psychological safety. That means nobody should have fear in learning something. In other words, that means you should be free to learn. You should have the willingness to learn. You should have opportunities to learn. You should have resources to learn. Anyone interrupting, or it's a voice? Okay. And at the same time, we should also be able to be open to new ideas. That is also is very important, because unless we are open to new ideas, it is not possible for us to proceed further. The next one they're telling is how we are giving time for collaboration. We should also give time for reflection. Reflection time is more important. Otherwise, when we don't reflect, we won't be able to collaborate and we won't be able to improve. So we need to find time to reflect also in our process of learning. So these are some of the things which they're telling that should that's why they change the approach in that direction. They're considering us as a learning organization and using that lens to come and check or evaluate how we are progressing in this as an organization, as a learning organization. The next one, what they're telling is the emphasis. Especially when you see the emphasis part of it, here the emphasis is mainly on learning. That's why they kept the learning as a central part of the triangle. So they are using the lens of learning. That's why they focus more on approaches to learning, approaches to teaching, approaches to assessment. So when you see the learning practices, the strands of that are lifelong learners, or it is approaches to teaching, approaches to learning, and approaches to assessment. So there are strands which are always focusing on the learner. So the learning becomes the main emphasis for them. They're not worried about how we are doing it, but the learning should happen. And of course the holistic approach of the curriculum. They don't Initially they were focusing more on academic attainment. Now it is more of holistic approach, because that is what is finally going to help each individual to be a successful global citizenship. Because when we read their uh, mission and IB's mission, we come to know that the purpose of education is that one. Now, here the cubic part of it, the cube I have just represented it. They also telling us to use the systems thinking. The systems thinking meaning here is seeing the whole together, seeing the whole as together. In other words, even though we have environment, culture, um, purpose separately, and learning separately as standards, we need to see as a whole. That is why they're telling you to zoom out your lens and see where all it is happening, what all practices which we are mentioning. There is a one famous uh, axiom, or we can call it as a theorem in mathematics, that is, sum of two triangles is greater than the third angle. Sum of the angles of two sides of a triangle is greater than the third side, or the third vertex which you take it into consideration. Similarly, here they are using as a metaphor that even though the individual expertise, the individual intelligence of a learner, individual IQ of a learner may be more, but they're telling the collective IQ should be more than the parts. So that is the meaning of this. In other words, as a team, we should be able to have a greater thinking than as individual thinkers. So that means when we want to develop as a school in that direction, we need to be synergetic, and at the same time use our lens to see that in a broader way, that whether it happens everywhere. That happens only when we devise tools and protocols to check, with having known the meaning of what all will be the best practices in which we are which we are applying. So the first one is a learning organization, which is their approach. The second one is the emphasis is on systems thinking, team learning. Maybe even they are pressing on personal mastery also. Personal mastery in the sense they're telling that each teacher should have a personal vision to learn. They should have a roadmap how they are going to learn, or how they are going to improve their thinking or learning in their future. So that means their personal mastery also will contribute for the team learning. So in other words, these are some of the things which they expect continuously to happen. Of course, the vision also should be a shared vision, they're telling. Even though the school has a vision, we need to understand that it is a shared vision for all the stakeholders in the school: parents, students, the community, the support staff system, all the teachers, whoever works here. All of them should know that this is a vision which is shared by the school. For example, a simple thing I can take: truth, trust, and triumph. We say we need to synthesize and find out whether we are able to apply this in all our aspects of our functioning. So we need to evaluate and see whether it is happening. Otherwise, what will happen is it happens in only a few places, and if it is not happening in other departments or in other stakeholders, then the purpose of having a vision which is not shared and which is not implementable, then it becomes everywhere we will have isolated or fragmented types of growth, which will not help us to grow as a school completely as a learning organization. So that's what they're trying to say. So the takeaway from this new framework is, first of all, the relationship which is changed from compliance to development. The approach, it is in the form of a learning organization, and here the emphasis is more on team learning, the personal mastery. It is on systems thinking, and at the same time building a shared vision. So these are some of the aspects in which IB created this new framework. So everybody should have that idea, so that when we plan our meetings, so we should understand that this is also as a requirement. The deadline for completing the self-study questionnaire also, we put it as November 17th. All the deadlines, all the timelines are coming together in one Google Sheet, which Divya is creating. And specifically to the different focus groups, if you plan meetings inside your groups, you need to share the minutes as well as the group timelines to Divya, so that she will inbuilt all that into the Google Sheet. And this Google Sheet, we have to share it to the IB in the portal for our timelines, because they wanted to know what are the timelines you created for fulfilling the self-study process. So all these focus groups will come together for their timelines. So when we create first important step, which we need to create a timeline for our self-study groups. Now, the next aspect becomes more important is how do we collect evidence? It is a challenging task, because we need to be open to ideas, able to collect perspectives from different stakeholders. We need to meet together, come together. We need to use different lenses, different stakeholders ideas, opinions, in order to collect evidence, because when we see through our eyes, sometimes what we see may not be what others see. So collecting
Sorry,
evidence
Suresh, sir.
become a very important one.
Sir?
Yes, Rita Miss, you're. I saw two people raising hand.
Sunita Miss also.
Yes, who raised first hand? I think Rita Miss. Sunita Miss, you can go ahead, and then followed by Rita Miss.
It was just when you were talking about the systems approach, I wanted to give in my opinion. My point was that there is this emergent property that develops. It's just a reiteration that whole is more than the sum total of its parts.
Yes, definitely. You
Yes.
used the correct statement. Correct. The
Yes,
whole is
more
more than the sum of the
sum
parts.
of parts. Yeah. So that's how a systems approach goes on.
Yes,
like,
yes.
Subjects, you need to go see the overall, and then it both ways. You need to zoom in and you need to zoom out.
It's true. You put it in correct word, Sunita Miss.
Yeah.
I use that analogy from mathematics, because that one theorem was there, but it is
Yes,
only for two. The same idea is coming, because sometimes what happens is when we have our own opinion as an individual, when we zoom out and zoom in, as you're telling, sometimes it gets modified, it gets changing, because it's based on pre-assumptions. Sometimes it's based on ingrained assumptions. We may not know, because it all comes from the constructive approach. What is our prior learning and how it affects us in thinking? Rita, Miss, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to ask you about this timeline that you spoke about a little while ago, the deadlines which we have to give to, I think, Divya Miss. Should we give the deadlines, or does she already have the deadlines?
She has the deadlines for the major part of it, what I created. In case, as a focus group, for example, if we are having a program development plans focus group separately, apart from the meetings which we are having initially, and if we are meeting continuously, we need to be able to document them with minutes and the date and time, so that also go into the timelines. For that purpose, I told.
Okay, and one more question is, when I'm looking at the self-study questionnaire, it talks about the standards and practices, achievement levels, or whatever it is, for all the three IB programs.
Yes.
So is it necessary to do for all three IB programs, or only one?
Actually, the new document, we will be first taking the standard practices as it is, and we'll be narrowing it down to the specific requirements, that is the DP program, so that we'll be directly going into that. But if you want to cross-check with for MYP and PYP also, we can do simultaneously, so that next evaluation, that is, this one is because we got the candidacy before that process, and since because of the pandemic they allowed the previous document, maybe the next one will be the new document, so we get some ideas. If you want, we can use it, not a problem. We can use the different lenses. At least it will give us a input for the old document also.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Now, some of the protocols or tools which are available, there are so many available for collaborative planning and collecting evidences. I have taken only basic three ones, which if we use, we will be able to start with that. And in case if we have group ideas and individual teachers' contribution that this is better than that one, we can have a consensus and we can use it, because sometimes tools helps us to collect it properly. Otherwise, what will happen is we will not be able to get into deeply. That's a purpose. The first one is a simple one, because see, hear, and feel. What you see, what you are hearing, and what you're feeling. So any practices if you take, we can apply this as a basic idea to find out whether we are able to see that, whether we are able to hear that, and whether we are able to feel that. In other words, using this tool, make a subject visible by asking what do they hear and what they see and feel. And we can think about the practices which are visible. Sometimes some practices are part of the culture of things itself, so the way we do things also. So we can use this as a starter in case if you want to find out. For example, I can take some practices like this: how open communication is in the school. So we need to see how, what all we can see, or what all we can hear, or what all we can feel. When we keep digging deeply, we'll be able to document few things, and then we can understand whether those practices are best practices, whether it is visible, whether we can hear that, whether we can feel that in that culture. So like that, maybe it can be used for the how access to the IB program is promoted, whether governance or leadership support the implementation of the DP program. So again, when we dig deeper using these three small tool for collaborative planning, which help us to do that. Or it can be even maybe a gallery walk. The second tool we called as gallery walk, which usually uses, we use this in our teaching and learning also, but it is a very effective one, because here each member is given a chance. In other words, each member or the stakeholder of the focus group could be asked to write down maybe a number of indicators for a particular standard, or it can be a practice. What they need to do is they have to go around and find out and collate all those what they feel as indicators for that practice, and then they can create that in a chart paper, or they can create in a padlet. They can share it, or they can use a jamboard, whichever way, whether it is virtual or physical. And every member's contribution comes together, and when we walk through that gallery, we will get a lot of perspectives and ideas. Then we can come to a consensus where it is happening, where it is not happening, where it requires improvement. So many things can be found out using gallery work also, especially when we are using in our focus groups to dig deeper into the practices. The first one is see, feel, and hear. The second one is the gallery walk. Third one, which I felt, which is also sometimes usable, is one more statement is there, that is, stakeholders can carry out this gallery walk for looking for the evidence, especially, and we can add other examples also in that. The third one is a photo montage, which is also again a useful one, which we use in teaching and learning. Here, photo montage is it's something like each person's perspectives also comes in this, because here you are trying to bring evidence which is in the form of a image, or it can be in the form of a photography, or it can be in the form of artifacts, or it can be some kind of a product. It can be anything. So you are using that as a tool and tell that it is happening. So this is also very useful for getting information from multiple perspectives, and especially for collecting information regarding whether this is a best practice or not. We can always use it. For example, if I use this statement, how international mindedness and the learner profile is promoted among all members of the school community. So when we dig deeper into it, and when we try to move around and try to gather all those artifacts and images and pictures, or any scenario relating to that, we'll be able to bring out and find out these are the things happening. Sometimes we can modify certain things which are not happening, or we can do something more on that. So these are some of the examples. I'm not telling these are the main ones. There are so many, I think around hundreds of collaborative planning tools are there. But some of them, if we start applying it when we are doing our focus groups, it becomes easy for us to have a tool to generate or investigate the practices which are happening. So that's a purpose which I thought. And even one more, if you'd say, the extent to which the written curriculum promotes students' awareness of individual, local, national, and world issues. Again, this related to the curriculum part of it, and of course, local and world issues is a main part in MOIP, and of course, it is there as a standard in DP also. So that means wherever you teach, how you are bringing in these type of students' awareness on individual, local, and national and world issues. So we need to dig deeper and find out where all we can take synopsis or evidences, and that will help us to understand. And where it is in minimum used minimum, we can increase those usage there also, because it should be across the subjects, it should be across the stakeholders everywhere. That is why they're telling that it is not only in your learning inside the classroom, it should happen everywhere in your as a learning organization. To what extent to which teaching and learning especially use a range of strategies, that also we can find out, because when we go through different walkthroughs, especially the subject leads or HODs or as coordinators or as leadership team, if anyone goes, you will be able to understand what type of strategies are used. Are there any pattern in their strategies? Are there, we have a few strategies which are repeated frequently? Are there any strategies which help students to improve critical thinking always? Or those are things which we can again investigate and find out. So I just gave you an idea, because we will may not be having every time a common a common session for these program evaluation, because now we divided into a committee for collecting all the documentation requirements, that is preliminary review. We also divided now the program development plan separately. We have a self-study group also separately. So now these groups will function independently now. Of course, once in a bi-weekly, we have a common meeting just to understand where we are. In case any help or support required, we will be doing it. And of course, we will be coming together as a whole maybe twice a month. That should happen, because everyone should understand every other parts also. But as a focused group, our meetings will continue, and then we will be able to derive so many things. Of course, the learning should not stop. Anyone have any questions? Because I have around 5 minutes, and we have the next meeting with regarding the prefix
Sir,
council.
Girish.
Yes,
Girish,
Girish.
Miss.
Girish, go ahead.
Uh,
I can see
Yeah,
Priyam Madhav.
sir, regarding the evidence collection, we need to go through the previous action plans
Yes,
and
yes.
the document which we are
Yeah,
having.
it is better to go through the previous action plan as well as the evaluation report shared by the IB in that March 2017 folder.
Okay.
So both are there. So it will help us to understand if we have fulfilled that. And then before that is collecting evidences, practices, it should satisfy. That's why we need to go through the practices and then collect evidence. So that becomes easy.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Girish. Priya Madam has anything?
Sajini Miss also, sir.
Sajini Miss and Priya Madam, as you can go one by one.
Suresh sir, this question is regarding school information. On the document, it says here that leadership and governance understand all IB rules, regulations, and guidelines and have put in place structures and processes to ensure compliance. So, how do we go about collecting evidence for this?
We need to have a survey with the governing body also to find out whether they understand the requirements. We usually, in the previous one, we had a meeting, pre-meeting with them before the evaluation team came. Now maybe we can have maybe 1 or 2 or 3 stages in that, where one, we can first find out from survey what they know, and then we can have a session with them to inform about an introductory session to help them to understand what is this evaluation and what all things they need to know. The third one, again, we can have a survey to find out how much they understood, and then they are prepared for that, because when they have a leadership team meeting, governing body meeting, they should be able to answer a few questions what the evaluators are asking. Have I answered some parts, Priya Madam?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sajini Miss?
So I was wondering how much time, if we have to change whatever committees we are related to, do we have time to make changes in, for instance, if there is a change we want to make in vision or mission, is there time to make changes, and will that not entail a lot more than what time we have
Actually,
left?
the document which we are putting it inside will be on October 15th. That is preliminary review documents. So in that, if we made some changes and we are putting it as a change with the changes, it goes by October 15th. In case if you feel something, you feel that it need to be by consensus it should be added or changed or modified. If you want to put it as an action plan, we can do that way. But only thing, in the self-study process, we'll be taking some parts of it, and then we can suggest these are the things which we have made in the self-study process, but we have submitted that document, but these we are thinking of doing in future, like that we can mention if we feel.
Okay,
Yeah.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Miss.
Mm.
Otherwise, secret of everything is getting started. So secret of getting ahead is always getting started. So read the documents first, so that will give us more clarity, and some more resources wherever I find, I will share it that in the IB program evaluation itself, because a lot of reading is required, especially to develop as a learning organization, because that is what they're focusing. So we need to ensure that every one of us is in that learning mode. So that is our great challenge, which we need to do it. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time. Even though I conducted on Saturday, most of you attended in full attendance. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.